On the cusp for a decade, but never quite making the big time in professional surfing, Cooper's life was destined to go down another path. After seeing his sister lose multiple friends to suicide and facing his own challenges, he educated himself on mental health and founded the Good Human Factory to connect people with simple tools to improve their well-being. It took off and has since grown into countless nationwide workshops for schools and businesses, the popular podcast Good Humans, and an online community called the 1% Good Club that inspired Cooper's recently published debut book. This is Cooper Chapman.
Welcome to Youngblood, the volunteer video podcast dedicated to young men's mental health. I'm your host, Cal McPherson, and this is a platform for young men and their loved ones to share lived experience stories and show that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. Suicide is the number one killer of young people, and changing that starts with speaking up. So let's do it. This show touches on some tough topics that may provoke strong emotions. If you find anything in this chat distressing, please do whatever you need to do to look after yourself.
Could just tell me about building the 1% Good Club.
Oh, the 1% Good Club, good spot to start. As in the community on Instagram or the book?
Let's start with the community because the books obviously come out of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess back in 2021, I believe it started about 1,600 days ago. Obviously work in the mental health space, and I was telling everyone in my workshops that, meditation, gratitude, all these healthy habits are really good. And, I was practicing them, multiple times a week, but I was struggling with the consistency of daily. And I was sitting down one day doing a meditation, and I was just like running my mind like everyone else does. I couldn't really slow it down. And I had this thought that came to mind, and I was like, surely we can all dedicate 1% of our day to our mental health. I mean, I know your podcast really touches on so many stories of people who have really struggled with their mental health. Everybody has been affected by somebody in their life with mentally ill health. And I was like, surely we can collectively agree that we should be able to give 1% of our day to our mental health. And I stopped about 5 minutes into a 10-minute meditation and got my calculator out and started to work out how long 1% of a day is. And there's 1,440 minutes in a day. So 1% is 14.4 minutes, and 14.4 minutes is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So I was like, let's round it down to 14 minutes. So it's literally less than 1% of your day. And I was like, well, what can I do for 1% of my day that's good for my mental health? And two of the things from my podcast and from reading so many books and working with high-level psychologists through my surfing career as a professional athlete, I was like, two things that have profoundly helped me, a mindfulness or a meditation practice, and then also a gratitude practice every day, reflecting on, a few positive things that happened during the day. So I was like 10 minutes meditation, 4 minutes gratitude at night. There's 1% of my day for my mental health. But I was also very aware that we're far more likely to maintain a healthy habit if we have a community around us, an accountability group. So I was like, why don't I use social media for good? So I posted a story on my Instagram. It was, back in 2021, about 1,630 days ago as we record this. And I said, if anyone wants to join this community, I'm going to call it the 1% Good Club. 1% of your day doing something good for your mental health. So I was like, and then also my mental health organization is called the Good Human Factory, and my logo is a smiley with the word good. So kind of that's where the 1% good came from, to connect it with my business and my work. And the first day we had about 30 people join, and I was quite surprised by that. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And back when I started, you could only have 32 people in a group chat on Instagram. So it went from one group to 2 to 5 to 10 over the first kind of year. And every morning I send a guided 10-minute meditation link so people can just click on it. They get the little notification on the Instagram. And then every night I post on my Instagram story 3 things I'm grateful for. And then I send it to the groups. And then everybody writes in the community what they're grateful for as a bit of a reminder to stop and reflect on those positive things that happened. And yeah, it was 1,600 days ago it started. I haven't missed a day since, and it's grown from 20 members day one to over 3,000 members have joined over the past few years. I think there's close to 1 million gratitudes have been sent in from the community. So, and then I take feedback, and if you've read the book, I know you'd see the testimonials from people in that community. Like, it is profound the impact this has had on so many people's lives. So that was kind of the extension that led into me writing my book, which is also called the 1% Good Club, which I kind of call the second part of my experiment of trying to just encourage people to start with that bare minimum of 1% of your day for your mental health. So if anyone listening is like, oh, that sounds like a pretty cool idea, I wouldn't mind trying to take a bit of action for my mental health daily. If you send at the Good Human Factory on Instagram a direct message saying, I want to join the club, it's completely free. It always will be. If you join and it's not really your thing. You can leave, no qualms at all. It's just a free resource for people to be part of a community trying to give a bit of action for their mental health every single day. So that's the community.
Man, it's such a smart concept. And what I love about it is the way that you've tweaked the adage of, 1% better. You know, we hear, you got to be 1% better every day. But that's kind of a lot of pressure and not sure exactly how to measure that. Like I love the 1% good club. You don't just do 1% of your day, dedicate that to good and dedicate that to looking after yourself and actually consciously making an effort to be grateful and to meditate and be present. That's something everyone can do. And it's not like you have to force yourself to constantly evolve. Not like that's a bad thing, but I feel like that can feel like a lot of pressure and it's like performance driven sort of thing versus the way you're doing it, creating that community where it's really about showing up for yourself and consciously trying to improve your health and actually put yourself first and love yourself for at least 1% of the day. And the way you framed that, I think that's why it's resonated so much with people. And then the other part of it, the fact that you've actually done that every day since you started doing that, as someone who produces content and has a page and does my best or what I think is my best to be consistent, like that level of consistency is ridiculous, man. So I really, really, really respect that as a content creator. And that also the fact that you've been able to create a community like you have around what you do and that it's resonated to such an extent and must be amazing for you to see hundreds of people every day talking about what they're grateful for and like really seeing that impact in such a visceral way where people are constantly coming forward. And as I've heard you say in other conversations is that, you don't even need to be part of it anymore because I mean, you love being part of it and it's important, but you've grown this thing and now it's got sort of a mind of its own and people are just part of it. And you did that and your consistency and your vision and believing in what you do and then hanging an idea out there. And I know it's like, there's a degree of vulnerability when you do something like that because people would say imposter syndrome. You're certainly not an imposter, but the idea of like, who's gonna do this? Like, I feel like a dick doing this, but you just got over that and you've done it every single day. And now hundreds and hundreds of thousands of other people also do it. I think that's like real impact in a rare sort of way. And it's more than just, I got this many impressions or this many views or whatever. It's like actual people communicating about this and talking about how it changes their lives on a daily basis. I really feel like I get how epic that is. Yeah, massive credit to you. I really admire that.
Thanks, man. I mean, I've definitely missed a few days here and there. I've gone off grid and done some trips where I had no reception. But then I was like, I judged myself and I was like, I've lost the streak. And I was like, it's not about the streak. It's just like how many days since I've started doing this. So I've got And then when you said the part about the consistency, it's for me just as much as it's for everyone else. So it's like, it is hard to do it every day, but it probably takes me I actually have a girl who works for me now who sends the meditations in the morning because I did it for like 1,400 days or 1,500 days straight. And that was the thing that I just sometimes forget in the morning and not post a meditation for a little bit. And I was like, hey, can you do this just so it stays consistent? And then I do the gratitudes every night. And it's amazing. Lauren, who works for me, she really gets back to people from the Good Human Factories lens and supports people when they're going through, write their gratitudes. Were quite tough today because I lost a family member. She'll reach out. I'll reach out and try and, connect with people. And then the last thing that you said that I just wanted to quickly touch on is the fact of imposter syndrome and this idea of, I'm like, am I a dick for doing this? I always set the bar so low that I'm like, if this helps one person, it's worth my 5 minutes of my time to make one person's life a little bit better, to make one person stop and reflect what they're grateful for. I know from speaking to so many neuroscientists, it releases the chemicals in our body that make us feel good. So what a privilege. If I can send a few clicks on my phone screen and then it can inspire now thousands, but even back at the start, 30, 40, 50 people to release chemicals that make them feel good. That's pretty bloody cool if you ask me.
I definitely agree. But look, you've helped much more than one person. I think we can say, if it helps one person, but then you get addicted to that and you want to help more people.
I'll give you one more thing on there because I know you're obviously a social entrepreneur like me. The initial idea was definitely started and has always been to really help people and give people a platform. But it was also when I was sort of starting my business, I was people were just like this as a bit of an entrepreneur kind of mindset. I was a big fan of Gary Vee a couple of years ago. I don't really consume much of his content now, but he would always say, give, 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 and then ask people to buy from you. And I was kind of trying to promote my merch and saying, like, a lot of my content was like, hey, check out my workshops, book me to come and speak. Hey, go listen to my podcast. Hey, buy my merch. And I was like, if people come to my workshops or listen to the podcast, yeah, they're going to get value. But I wanted to have something that was like free value for anyone to get from the Good Human Factory. And then I was like, sweet, I'll build this community of thousands of people. Then when I drop new merch, thousands of people will buy it. Thousands will buy the book. Let me be honest with you, it didn't work like that. There's thousands of people in the community. I just dropped a new merch range and had like 10 people in the community bought something. Not trying to judge anyone at all. I know times are tough and maybe it's just not their sort of merch that they want to buy, but it became like, actually, who cares if people buy stuff because of it? So many people in the community have, booked me to come and do workshops at their workplace or their kids' school. So it's that sort of flow on effect of I was like, you know what, I want to give, give, give. And then if people want to take, I feel a little bit better asking people to buy from me if they've got all this free input from me as well.
Yeah, and it seems like a hard line to walk because this is your business. This is how you put food on the table. And it's also something that's deeply meaningful to you, that you're extremely passionate about, that you started for all the right reasons, and you've got to maintain that integrity and not forget why you started it in the first place. But as it goes from strength to strength and evolves and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it must be difficult to, not let it get away from you, or to forget why you started, or not let it turn into something else that you didn't intend. Like, are you grappling with any of that?
Yeah, a little bit. It's just, the way that I've built what I'm doing is just trying to stay really genuine to like what I do, because a lot of people in my situation with kind of my speaking is kind of the major part of my business where I make like 90% of my income. And a lot of people in my position will then go and build their business around their model and then get like 5 or 6 other speakers, pay them a few $100s to go and do their workshops and then charge them out at a couple grand. And I just didn't fully agree with that. I saw the model that a lot of charities are doing, raising all this money, then paying facilitators like $100 an hour, which is great. But I'm like, I know how much people get paid to public speak. So I kind of changed my philosophy and was like, let me try and grow what I do and become like a really high ticket keynote speaker for corporates. Let me find partnerships with brands or businesses who want to help fund my school workshops, which I'm currently in the process of doing now, like LSKD. I did a partnership with last year, which funded 1,500 students getting free workshops. This year, we're about to announce a big one for Mental Health Day, where we're going to be doing workshops for 6 sporting clubs around the country. And then if it goes well, we'll reprint and do like another 6, so 12 sporting clubs. So I'm just trying to like think creatively. How can I offer my workshops and my services for free to sporting clubs, to schools that, might not have the budget? But then how do I, become a speaker? Because I know how much a lot of other speakers are getting paid to go into these corporate spaces, and then they have the money, and it becomes a great return on investment for big corporate companies to invest in wellbeing for their staff, less absenteeism, better wellbeing of their staff, more productivity. So I'm just trying to work out my own creative model. That's how do I be able to offer the people who need it, who might not be able to afford it, for free, let businesses support that, and then have my corporates. Yeah, it's trying to be creative and, be able to get my work and my message out to as many people as possible, in a way that people can afford it, but in a way that I can also, build a life for myself, be able to, eventually buy a house, raise my family in, a bit of financial comfort. So I think the real sweet spot in life is, how do you have a business that is absolutely for purpose? Everything you do is really helping people, but people who buy your products, people who buy your services, finish going, that was so good, thank you so much. It might be an expensive premium product, but a lot of people are selling expensive premium products that aren't a net positive to the world that people are happy to buy. So yeah, I've just trying to learn the business world after being a professional athlete. It's an interesting thing, but really happy where I'm at right now. I've found some really cool things that I've been doing, going up to the mines, doing workshops with staffs up there where they have, great budgets, so then I can keep my pricing really nice for schools and for sporting clubs and different people who, might not be able to afford to get people like me in to come and speak.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. And you have to be able to have that business mindset and the logistical side of things, as well as just the creativity and then the bit that you love to actually make it work for yourself. And it sounds like you're finding that sweet spot, but I think that's a very difficult thing to do. And then you're also selling a product, which is you and your experience and everything that you've learned and the way that you deliver it. and it actually does do a lot of good. And it's not just, smoke and mirrors like some others who might sell a program that they made on ChatGPT or whatever like that. Like you're the real deal, and you're doing such a good job with everything that you've built. Going back to before you started the 1% Good Club and before 2020, when you're still surfing in your early 2020. That doesn't sound very good. You were still surfing up to what, like 2022 or so?
2021. Yeah, 2022 was my last domestic year competing. 2021 was my last international year.
Yeah. So, and before that, like growing up, wanting to make it as a surfer, how bad do you remember wanting that life and that career?
Definitely really badly. Like, it's an interesting one. Now that I'm not professionally surfing, I definitely wish I could get in the water more because I'm so busy, but I'm also not like, oh my God, I need to get in the ocean like so many people who are absolutely in love with surfing are. So I'm just precursoring with that, because when I was a young surfer, when I first got into surfing at 8, 9, 10 years old, absolutely loved it more than anything. Got in the water every single day, made sure I was training. And then I had quite a lot of success from quite a young age. So that external validation, that sort of pats on the back from parents, hearing your parents talk about you to their friends, oh, Cooper's doing so well, he won this surf comp. And, I started to really love that. And I continued to do quite well as a junior. I, represented Australia 4 times throughout high school, all around the world, in Ecuador, Panama, Peru, and New Zealand through high school. So I loved it so much and I wanted it so bad. And then I kind of finished high school, was getting paid to surf, followed the junior tour in Australia, and I got second in the junior tour in Australia, under 21s twice before I was like 18, I think. And then when I was 18, I went to the international tour and had a few really good years, sort of traveling the world, was climbing up the rankings, went from like 100th on the Challenger tour the first year to like 70, or maybe my second, to maybe like 40th or 50th. And then my third year, when I was about 21 years old, I got 23rd on it's called the Challenger Tour, which in surfing, think there's the top 32 in the world. I don't know if you know surfing much, but top 32 in the world is the world tour. So think about it like, it's like in the AFL making the all-Australian team, the all-stars team of the world for surfing pretty much are in this world tour. Then there's the next 100 in the world do this next tour. And the bottom 10 on the world tour replaced by the top 10 on the Challenger Tour each year. So I was on that Challenger Tour for pretty much 8, 9 years trying to get into that top 10. And I was sort of always between 23rd was my best year, up to about 100. I kind of fluctuated in that sort of 70 people for 7 or 8 years, which is pretty amazing looking back. I was ranked in the top 120 surfers in the world for almost a decade. And, there's more of surfers in Australia, let alone the world. Like, it's probably one of the, apart from soccer and stuff, one of the more participated global sports in the world. So to be in that top micro percent was amazing. But I also battled with never quite making it to where I dreamed of. And I battled that a lot for a long time in my mental health. Was like, oh, I didn't quite make it. I didn't achieve it. But then I really flipped my mindset to gratitude. I was like, am I going to look back on my whole career, my whole life and say I failed? Or am I going to look back and say, wow, I traveled the world surfing with my best friends for 10 years. Like, I won through the best years of my life. I was traveling the world, and for a few of those years getting paid to surf. But yeah, I guess that really stems into a lot of my self-worth issues came when I had that best year, third in the world. I then got a tap on the shoulder from my sponsor at the time, Hurley, and they were like, look, amazing year, but we kind of think this is the best you're going to do. And our funding is moving around with our marketing budget. So unfortunately, we're going to have to take you off contract. And I was making around $50,000 a year, and then they took it all away. And I went from, this guy with stickers on his board, almost about to qualify, next year's going to be great, to, sorry, mate, we don't think you're going to make it. And that was a really tough time for me. That was one of the first times that I thought about like giving it up. And then I was like, I'm 22 in my absolute prime, ranked in the top 50 in the world right now, and I'm thinking about giving it up. So that was one of the first times that I was like, but then I stuck at it. I had some good support from Manly Surf School to give me some work. And then I started working as a tradie to, dig holes and make enough money, doing 2 weeks of labor work to then go travel overseas to my next event. So I was all in and absolutely wanted nothing more than to be a professional surfer. And then it's sort of as my 20s came on and I started to, lose my sponsorship and work, the dream started to dwindle away a little bit. And I really started to read a lot of self-development books and began to realize that quite often we climb this mountain of achievement and get near the top and realize, wait, is this really what is making me happy and fulfilling me? And that's when I started to learn about, service to others, giving back, and the impact that has on your well-being. And then, yeah, after a few years of learning about this stuff, my sister lost a friend to suicide, and that kind of sparked the start of the Good Human Factory. And slowly that became far more important to me than the surfing.
How did starting the Good Human Factory and building that impact your perspective on surfing? Because I know you got that opportunity to have like one last crack at surfing and that didn't quite pan out. And then you got another opportunity to do the Challenger series again and go, not a world tour, but around the world doing that for months. And you'd already started Good Human Factory and then back to surfing, but it didn't feel the same for you anymore. Like there was a mindset shift there, and there'd been a mindset shift earlier when you were like grappling for sponsorship and getting bitter about other people getting sponsors and you not getting it. And then Good Human Factory starting to figure something else out and see things in a different way. And then I got to the point where you're somewhere else surfing, things aren't working out exactly in the ocean as you would like, but you don't really care about it the same anymore. So can you just talk about like that perspective shift for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I started the Good Human Factory. The idea happened in 2018. I just sort of got home from a big overseas trip. Life's pretty good. And my little sister shared with us sitting around the dinner table that one of her friends had taken his life the night before. That was one of the first times I'd really heard about youth suicide and that close to me in my community, like, my sister's friend at school. And I asked myself two questions that like night. I was like, why is this happening? One. And then the second was like, is there anything I can do about it? And the second one really came from a place of guilt. I was quite reflective at this stage of my life and really trying to understand who I was as a young man. And I started to realize like, I'm traveling the world surfing, living this great life. And then there's kids in my local area that are struggling so much with their mental health that they're taking their own life. Like, I've been so fortunate with my career to, even though, I would have loved to have more sponsors, I started to really, instead of comparing across and up, I started to compare across and down and go like, I've had so many opportunities that so many people don't have through working with these top level psychologists and learning all of this really important things when it came to my well-being, and I didn't get taught it at school. So I kind of felt it was my duty. I was like, if I can go and help a few of these kids at my old high school and one of them leaves going, oh, that was a cool way to look at mental health, I might start trying to do mindfulness or gratitude or these things that were really helping me. Then I was like, that would be amazing. So I spoke to an old school teacher friend of mine, said, can I come in and have a chat to the students? And he was like, oh man, you're such a good human for wanting to do that. They can come to your workshop and they leave a bit better of a human, like it's a Good Human Factory. And that was where the name came from. So my school teacher came up with the name and it stuck. And then ever since then, I was working full time as a tradie, all of 2019. Pardon me. Surfing professionally. In between the tradie work and then the Good Human Factory. Year one, I did 2 workshops. There's no business there. It was just like me wanting to go and do some talks to help some people. And then 2022 came around and COVID hit. So all of my surf comps got cancelled. And I was like, well, maybe I lean into this Good Human Factory thing. Maybe I go do some study around mental health. I did like a Science of Wellbeing course. I'd launched my podcast the end of 2019 because I was like, if I interview interesting people and learn their stories, maybe I can get more things that they've done that have helped them. So instead of having to make the mistakes myself or learn the hard lessons myself, maybe I can learn them from somebody else. And I began to interview all these people, and that was like 2020. And then by the end of 2020, I'd started to get like a couple workshop bookings virtually because everything was closed. But I was still competing surfing, and I was like, all right, once COVID's over, I'm back into the surfing full time. But slowly the Good Human Factory was like picking up momentum and the surfing was losing a bit of interest, like no sponsorship, no funding. And then 2021 came around and I just missed out on the international tour by one spot. And I was like, all right, that's a sign. Full-time Good Human Factory, let's lean into it. And then I got a call like 2 weeks before the international 4 events in the kind of warped COVID year 2021 tour. And they're like, you can have the last spot. Somebody pulled out injured. So you need to fly to America in 2 weeks. You've got US Open at Huntington Beach in America. Then you go straight to Portugal for an event in Ericeira, straight to France for an event in the south of France in Hossegor, and then to Hawaii for the last event. And you have to leave in 2 weeks. And I had all these workshops booked and I was like, all right, this is a sign. One last shot at the surfing. Had to postpone and cancel all my Good Human Factory workshops I had booked. There wasn't many. There's probably 3 or 4. I had to like ring around to any friends who had businesses to try and find sponsorship to like, almost beg for money to make this career happen. Got a bit of money together and went on this tour for 4 months. But while I was on that tour, I was just like seeing the stuff on the socials with the Good Human Factory, the podcast, and I was like, to be honest, as much as I'm loving this surfing and I'm having the best time ever on this 4 month trip, I kind of knew it was going to be one of my last ones ever. So because of that, I got to almost enjoy it more. I really had good times with my mates. I did a bit more sightseeing. I actually met my beautiful partner when I was in Portugal. She's Brazilian and now she lives here with me. We have a partner visa, brought her home from that trip basically. And yeah, this next chapter of my life has just been amazing. So I got home from that trip at the end of 2021 and just started to realize, like, I was getting messages that, hey, this podcast that you did profoundly changed my life. Hey, that workshop that you did for our school really helped me. I get students all the time saying it really helped them. And I started to really feel like this is more important than my surfing. I'll still surf. I'll still support all my mates who are pro surfers. I'll still always be such a big fan of the sport of surfing, of competitive sport in general. But for me, I just felt like I've lived this life for 15 years traveling the world. Now's my time to give back. And then I began to realize this is really fun for me as well. Entrepreneurship, interviewing people, building a business, trying to be creative and work out how can I build a business where I make money, but I also impact people. And yeah, I haven't really looked back since. From 2012, I was still working a few days a week to afford my rent, packing boxes at a friend's warehouse and working sort of little jobs wherever I could just to get by to make rent. And then by 23, 24, I'd started to get busy enough to be able to go full time. Yeah, now it's pretty wild times. I've got a book out that came out last a few days ago while we're recording this. Yeah, got I think episode 500 episodes of my podcast is going to be actually maybe today or maybe it's next Wednesday will be my 500th episode published. I've spoken to over 50,000 students now. I've worked with Apple, Telstra, Red Bull, Amazon, Westpac, Coles. I was up in the mines with Origin and BHP the other day. So my world's completely changed. I travel more than I ever have domestically. But yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm getting to impact so many people and get to share these lessons that I continually get to learn. And yeah, it's really helping a lot of people.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
it's a very long
unbelievable
answer.
it's unbelievable what you've achieved. Man, that many podcast episodes. I've done a bit over half that, and I feel like I've done a lot.
I've got
And
220 guest episode, 220 guests, but I've got, another 200 and other bonusy episodes. I just saw on my Acast backend when I was uploading yesterday that it was episode 499 on the Acast backend. So yeah, pretty crazy to have that many bits of content out in the last 5 years.
yeah, it is. And I think we can definitely count that. How do you go with all the travel side of things? Because that must take a toll on you constantly flying around the place and always on the move. And then it's not like you got a desk job on purpose. Like you've got to get up there and you've got to perform and you've got to make it worth people's while. And it's something that means a lot to you. You want to give 100% every single time. How do you manage all that travel and all that effort?
I mean, I really enjoy it. I'm very lucky that I've got connections in every major city. For instance, 2 weeks ago, I was down in Adelaide. I have another program called Blue Minds that's in partnership with Surfers for Climate. So the Good Human Factory and Surfers for Climate created a partnership how to teach students how to take care of the ocean, but also their mental health. And it's gone mad, this program, which is really cool, with a friend of mine, Cal Glansnig. He is a local independent councillor in Sutherland Shire Council. He put his hand up to run for, local government and got elected at 24 years old last year, and is just so passionate about protecting our ocean. And me as a surfer, the ocean's such an important part of my life. So I was in Adelaide with that program like 2 weeks ago, but then I've got a really close friend who you probably read about in the book, because I know you're Adelaide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a friend, Zach, from Adelaide, and like I'll go stay with him when I'm in Adelaide. So as much as I'm traveling, I'm catching up with
Zach's
friends,
been
and
on
then
the
I'm
podcast.
Zach's the
Yeah.
best, eh? I bloody love that guy. Like I go to Adelaide, I catch up with a friend, I do some work, and as much I look at it like going to a desk job from 9 till 5 sounds like massive to me. To go from Monday to Friday like that sounds like a way bigger week for me than like going to the airport. I'm a platinum Virgin flyer, so I go to the airport lounge, eat some food, get on a plane, watch a documentary on my, iPad, get somewhere, grab a hire car, go, like I was in Melbourne yesterday, go catch up with like another friend for lunch, stay at their nice house, go to a workshop at a school, get great feedback. And the workshops that I deliver, I've got like 3 or 4 different iterations of it, but I've done them all so many times now that it doesn't really take that much preparation at all. I don't really have to have any nerves going into it anymore because I've got thousands of bits of feedback and testimonials from past clients from schools, every different industry. And based on the data, I now know that it's going to impact every room that I walk into because I'm not the expert that comes in and bore people with the science. The guy that comes in and goes like, here's my personal story. Here's some of the experts who I've learned these really great things off on my podcast and my career. And here's how you can integrate them into your life. Like, I'm not trying to be I'm the Olympic gold medalist. Look how good I am. Which, I love getting to watch Olympic gold medalists, taking nothing away from how amazing, top level athletes' speeches are. But I'm not that world champion speaker. I'm the guy that hopefully people can relate to and, see some of my stories very relatable to their life and then go, okay, maybe I can pull some of these stories and lessons and maybe help me. So yeah, the travel is pretty busy. Like I was in Sydney Wednesday this week, Melbourne Thursday, back on the Gold Coast today, back in Melbourne next week for 3 days, home for the weekend, back in Melbourne for like 4 days. And I go to Bali for 2 weeks, home for 2 days, go to Brazil. I'm 80% sure I'm going to Brazil to the United Nations Climate Conference with Blue Minds to speak on behalf of Australian youth, which is pretty crazy to potentially be a United Nations speaker, and then home for like 3 weeks for work and in the mines, and I'm just everywhere. But I love it. It's a time of my life. I don't have kids yet. I think right now is my real hard time to go as hard as I can with this while I'm still young, fit, healthy. And then, as I continue to grow, maybe I can increase my prices, go away a little bit less, and be a little bit more strategic with how I do the travel. But while, I'm young, the sun's shining, I'm trying to make as much impact as possible while I can.
It sounds like such an exciting life, man. Sounds awesome. How do you
Yeah, it's
go
cool.
with your own consistency? Your focus is obviously mental health and well-being. You're doing that for your day job. You're doing that on socials. Obviously, you've got to practice what you preach, but you're a human as well. Do you ever feel like you fall off or like you're not keeping up your part of your contract with yourself? Or do you feel like you sort of smash it out of the park every single day?
I absolutely do not smash it out of the park every single day, especially when I'm on the road. My philosophy is good mental health is a journey. Like, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. It's how many steps can I take each day against the treadmill of life, I call it, and then how many steps are going to take me backwards. And I have a thing, and you would have seen in the book, my full potential board. I have 10 healthy habits that I know are good for regulating my nervous system, for calming my mind, for keeping my body and mind healthy. And I definitely don't do all of them every single day, but they're all pretty achievable every day. And they're breath work, meditation, spending a bit of time in nature, practicing gratitude, exercise, communication with my partner or with somebody in a deep way, eating healthy food or cooking at home, sleep and recovery, making sure, I get good night's sleep. I'm a great sleeper. I love my sleep. And then stretching. So like, these are all things that when you say them all, it's like, wow, that's a lot to do in a day. But when you really break it down, it's not. And I reckon I'm like 5 out of 7 days a week with this stuff. Sometimes I miss them because, I've got a 4 a.m. flight to Melbourne. But I mean, I flew 4 a.m. to Melbourne yesterday, 6 a.m., sorry, from Sydney to Melbourne. I got to the podcast I was doing. I had 15 minutes. I just put a meditation and breath work on in my car and just did it there. So it's just trying to find the little moments. Like if we go on our phone and look at our screen time, most of us are spending plenty of time on our phones each day. I just try and, do a quick breath work and meditation where I can find the time, but usually it's in the morning. And then exercise is probably the thing that's fallen off the most for me because, I'm just so on the road and I, try my best and I'm like still like closing my rings on my Apple Watch because I'm just moving so much, walking through airports and doing a lot of things. But yeah, when I'm at home, my routine is far better than when I'm on the road, but I just try my best. And the main thing is just not feel guilty if you don't hit like all the things that are good for you. Like no one's perfect. And if you're the only one who has to live up here in your mind, so there's no point in beating yourself up. Like if you don't get it right today, try your best to get it right tomorrow. If you don't get it right tomorrow, try your best the next day. All we can do is, try our best in the present moment to make better decisions in the next moment. So yeah, I'm far from perfect to answer your question, but I try my best to have, progress every day, not perfection.
In the time since you kicked this all off, have you had moments where you've really struggled or been overwhelmed by your schedule or felt like you couldn't live up to everything that you committed to? Um, yeah, what's it been like, I guess, internally trying to actually execute this life and make it all happen and be that self-driving force at all times?
I'm pretty good with my rest days. Like if I'm at home and I don't have something on for the weekend, like I'll keep it super mellow, just hang out with my girl, go to the farmer's market, really chill out. I've got a sauna at home and just like when I'm at home and have those moments, have self-care days. But I have days every now and then where I'm like quite anxious and I'm like, oh my God, it's quite overwhelming how much stuff I've got on. Like, am I forgetting things? Like, my scheduling, like, am I not doing enough? Like, the girl who works for me, works with me, Lauren, like, some days I won't speak to her for like a week, or like some weeks I won't speak to her for the whole week because she's just doing the stuff in the background. I'm just like so busy with everything else, but I feel guilty about that stuff. And, I have anxiety. I had a mad day of anxiety this week on Monday where I was like, oh my God, it's book week. Are people going to buy it? Like, is my publisher going to be off me? And like, once again, a lot of the thing I wrote about in the book is not seeking external validation, but it creeps up for all of us, like trying to not let people down. Like, it matters to us how we make other people feel. So, yeah, I definitely have my days, but I just try and come back to the present moment and be like, you know what? All I can do is make better actions the next moment. I've got through every day of my life that was hard until now, and you know what? I'll probably get through quite a few more. So it's yeah, those days that are the hardest usually to do those healthy habits too, but it's just trying to come back to one or two of them, do a bit of reading, switch off from technology for a little bit. But I mean, I've been pretty good, to be honest. I've never missed a workshop I've never cancelled a workshop from being sick. I've postponed podcasts before. They're a bit easier to postpone, but yeah, I've never had to cancel a single workshop in 5 years of doing this. I've never had a sick day because I've, come down with the flu or let the had like a day that I needed to, because I feel like I'm quite good at managing the days that I do have not much on. I'll guilt-free do not much at all and let the body really settle, the mind settle, and recharge for the next big stint.
With your book, I think part of why it's so useful is because it's like it's not just about you. Like, obviously you're fundamental to it and to everything that you've built, but being able to actually give people actionable tools that they can apply to their own life, that they can simply think about and then use. And so it's about everyone who reads the book, everyone who wants to be part of that community, who wants to take responsibility, and with these simple steps, be able to actually transform their own lives like 1% of the time. I think that's such a good way of framing it and pulling it together, because people are going to want to buy the book and be part of it because it's about them through you. I just think like that's a really great way of framing it, because you could have done it in another way where it's really more about like your story and your own personal experience and less so about whoever might be buying it. But I think it's just so much more useful to people when it's like, and especially men probably, when there's a story, but there's also actionable steps. There's actually like, you can take this and you can do this every day. And it's not this massive leap. It's like maybe one of those 10 things on your list and you start implementing that 3 days a week. And then that momentum builds up. And from all the interviews that I've done and practice in my own life and what's worked for me and what seems to work for others is those really small steps turning into slightly bigger steps to really big steps to eventually transforming your life in a shorter amount of time than you might have thought of. So yeah, that's something that stands out to me from the book. Like, it's really well put together and I've marketed it, I suppose, but just the way that you've framed that, I think that really works.
Thank you. It was quite strategic. I've read so many self-development books, and quite often they're a little bit dense for me, a little bit too sciencey, and you kind of get halfway through and you feel like you know what they're talking about and you stop. And that's kind of my experience with a lot of books. And then I've also read a lot of books that are like Olympic gold medalists or like, people who have had these crazy achievements, and their story is also great. But I wanted to sort of bridge between. I wanted the book to be like a bridge to self-development books through an athlete entrepreneur story, and the obvious access I've had to all these great people on my podcast to be able to share some of their stories so people can kind of be like, here's where he's learned all the lessons. So as well, like the title of it is, I'm hoping it's like a concept book, and this is what my publisher really loved about it. When I got approached, pretty crazy, 13 months from when I got my first email from Wiley, my publisher, asking if I had any ideas for a book, that they'd been following my journey, and they were, yeah, keen to explore if I had any ideas for a book. And I kind of explained, like, yeah, I want to do this. First part of the book is about my surf journey and this idea of moving from victim mindset and external validation driven life to values driven life. And then the second part, I want to sort of do the entrepreneur journey of starting the Good Human Factory, the impact, the wins, the sort of community that I've built there, this 1% Good Club thing. And then I want to finish with, these 10 healthy habits that I try and practice that are on this full potential board that I have learned through these experts. And I initially wanted to call it the Good Human Guidebook. My publishers very smartly saw the opportunity and said, let's call it the 1% Good Club. And just like Atomic Habits or the 5 a.m. People can sort of pick up the book and be like, oh, have you read that book about giving 1% of your day to your mental health? So it's this 1% Good Club sort of concept and community and theory, but through my story and how I got there and built it and then how it can impact people's lives. So yeah, thank you for noticing that it's quite, a smart concept, and it's really cool. On the cover, the art has like 100 black dots really lightly on the background, and then one of them's yellow to represent how small 1% of your day is. And that idea of just giving one little, part of your day as a baseline for your mental health. I mean, better than anyone, the statistics behind mental health. It's the biggest killer of people aged 14 to 45 in our country. Like, I think it is so crucial and important that we all begin to take action. And this book is all about action. And this book is all about giving people that framework, giving people that really simple buy-in of just starting with 14 minutes of your day for your mental health. And hopefully it's written in a really nice chronological, I think, journey too. You can kind of follow the story through my journey, but you'll find parts of yourself in all different parts of my journey through family stories, through, ups and downs of struggling with identity, through ups and downs of trying to build a business and community. But then also the struggles that I've had with all of these healthy habits, but then how I've learned to integrate them. So yeah, I'm glad you've had a chance to rip into it and have a bit of a read. It's only 200 pages. It's quite short. I had like 6 months to write the book, and I ended up cramming like the last half of the book in the last 2 weeks. So you'll see the last few chapters kind of get a little bit shorter. So it's actually a really easy read, I think, for people to go through it, find things that are going to work for them, try them out, see if they work. If they do, amazing. If not, there's plenty of things in there that you can try out.
Yeah, and I reckon doing 1%, saying 1% of your day versus telling someone blanket, oh, you should meditate, or you should practice gratitude, or you should exercise. It's a really nice way of putting it, because if you ask anyone like what's the most important thing in life, a lot of people would say health. Like, your health is number one. And so then if you think about, well, 1% of my day, dedicating that to my own well-being, no one who says health's important is going to say, well, I shouldn't dedicate at least 1% of my day to that. Like, that's nothing. That means 99% of my day potentially is something else other than that. So when you think of it in that way, you're like, oh, that's definitely the bare minimum that I should be putting towards that. But the point of it being that that's enough to transform your life, and based on the gratitude practice and then the meditation, how do you feel like those two practices have impacted your capacity to be able to do everything that you do now and to meet all those goals and get yourself up every day and stay disciplined and actually make this all happen? Like, how do you think that those practices specifically have allowed you to actually do what you do?
We'll start with mindfulness and meditation. I mean, all of us have such active minds. Human brains have never had to deal with the amount of stimulation that we do right now. I was reading something recently, and I'm probably going to butcher it. Like, the amount of gigabytes of data that our brains take in every day is the same as humans about 200 years ago did in their whole lifetime, based on, the amount of things that we see through scrolling our phones and videos, the amount of, people that we feel we're being judged by. Like, our brains are processing so much more information than ever. And we need time to like let it settle. Like, we're thinking more than ever. And I heard this great thing that I'd love to try and tell this little story and see if it lands for people for the first time. In the way that I've been thinking about this recently. So I heard a Alan Watts quote on a song recently, and he said, "We have to stop talking to listen to people, but we have to stop thinking or stop doing things to listen to our body and to listen to the world around us." And a lot of us have lost that. And I was just thinking about that last night. That 10 minutes of meditation is really close to only the 10 minutes in my day where I'm not doing something or thinking about something. And it's like, to be able to feel how we're feeling in our body, to let things come up in our mind that we're not sort of distracting ourselves with what's in our phone, or turning a screen on, or picking up a book to read, or, working or doing sport. Like, we're always doing. Just stopping for a second and letting our minds think is so important. Like, I wouldn't have come up with the 1% Good Club if I didn't meditate. That's where it came to me out of my mind randomly in the middle of a meditation. So I think that's a really good way to view it, is like, by meditating, you're just letting your mind settle for a minute. It's like, your brain is like a bottle with dirt in it, and all day we're just shaking it up and it's so murky. There's just shit going on everywhere. When we just put it down for a second, which is what I think meditation is, the dirt settles. We can start to see a little bit clearer. We can start to notice the, beautiful colors around us when we walk through nature and we say, oh, look at the green there. Oh, how nice does that grass feel under my feet? Oh, how nice is that sun on my skin? How good is that bird that I just heard? Like, we're just thinking so much that we don't notice all this stuff. So for me, a meditation practice gives us the ability to feel and be part of the world around us more, rather than just stuck up in our head. And the other thing that I love, and that I think anyone who meditates will be able to attest for this, when we meditate, I feel like it builds this little bit of space between stimulus happening and wanting to react to it, and being able to respond to it. It creates this micro little second where you're like, wait, do I have to get furious at this moment? Or can I get curious and just take it on? And yeah, it's a big thing that I really talk about in my workshops, is this idea of like, try and get curious, not furious. And I think if our nervous system is so switched on because we don't take time to settle it, we don't, have that space to be able to respond rather than react. And what I've found, and from so many people I've spoken to, and, I'm a meditation and breathwork facilitator and coach. I've done all my training in that space. I've found this stuff allows me to, settle the mind daily, and allows me to show up a little bit more present, a little bit more conscious throughout my day. So that's why I think meditation and mindfulness is an important practice to have. And the gratitude is just something that's been pushed onto me a lot since I was a kid. My dad always said, Cooper, life's about appreciation, not expectation. When I was a kid, I just thought it was a scab and didn't want to buy me anything. But now I know he was teaching me like the most valuable lesson you can ever learn in life, right? Like, focus your thoughts and energy on the good things in your life and the positives that happen for the day, rather than the negatives and the challenges. And it's not to say that you don't have negative things and challenges going on. I never want to discount people who are going through a tragic moment in their life or circumstances that are really, really difficult. But gratitude's just the ability to take a few moments to shine the light that is your awareness on a few positive things that happened. You might have eaten something for lunch that just tasted really good. You can be grateful about that. You might have listened to a podcast where you changed your perspective on something and it gave you a light bulb moment. Cool, be grateful about that. You might have had a really challenging day and you went home and you opened the fridge and there was food in there to eat. And then you got in the shower and you turned the taps on and hot water came out. When we start to just think about these positive things and the good stuff, it releases chemicals in our brain and body that make us feel good. So that's why I feel like gratitude and mindfulness are these like very low hanging fruits. They cost nothing and they can have a profound impact. If you, put all of the benefits from gratitude and mindfulness into a pill, give it to me. How much does it cost? I'll pay anything for it. But because it takes a little bit of your time and a little bit of effort, and it can have a little bit of resistance, that, mindfulness of slowing down your thoughts, and you might be so used to just looking at the negative and being pessimistic. It takes a bit of effort to, move the brain waves to look at the positives. Like, these things take time, but growth is incremental, then it comes exponential. It's about how do we do it each day. Start with a minute if it's really hard to settle your mind. Build it up to 10 minutes a day. And then, hopefully you can get to that 1% of your day to give yourself the best chance of good mental health. There's awareness everywhere. And you see people, you're like, don't just post a bloody euphemism quote on your Instagram about suicide stats and how much you care, but then not do anything for yourself. Like, we have to show up for ourselves. That's how we start to see the statistics change.
What if I've had a really shit day and I'm pissed off and agitated, and the last thing I want to do is be grateful?
Do your best to just move that mindset. Know that the science is only going to release chemicals to maybe make you feel good after that shit day. It's just like, if you really don't want to, all good. You go to bed with shit thoughts in your mind. You're the only one who has to be up in your mind. No one else is there. You may as well try your best to make it more positive. Like, nobody has to live in your mind every single day. And to be honest, if it's really negative, it actually spills into other people's minds. If you're, all you're doing is thinking and talking about negative things. And I really feel for people, because I've been in that mindset at many times in my life. But the best way to get better at gratitude is to start slow. Look for a few things each day. Everyone in my community says it's quite difficult to start, but then you read other people's gratitudes. You start to do it each day, and then, hey, you actually start to find more things because you're changing your neural pathways to find the good in your life. And there is good in all of our lives. If you're listening to this right now, be grateful that you have the sense of hearing. A lot of people can't hear. If you're listening on a device right now, be grateful that you have an ability to buy a device that can, stream music. What we live in today, society, there wasn't hot showers 100 years ago. If you have a hot shower, you're doing better than the Queen of England 100 years ago. Like, there is so many things that we are so, so lucky to have right now. We're just trained, and negativity bias in our brain for survival looks for the negative, but there's not that many things that are, against our survival right now, a threat to our survival. So we have to train our brain to view the positive things. And with a daily practice, we can really start to change those neural pathways. So first of all, if you have that mindset and I've got nothing to be grateful about, I feel for you that you feel that way, but I challenge you, just try and go outside and be grateful that, you have grass under your feet. Go outside and be grateful that, there's air to breathe in. Like, every little thing that happened in perfect sequence in the, history of humanity has happened. Your family have survived plagues, have survived, everything in your family tree has survived for you to be here right now. There's something to be grateful for. Our planet is perfect distance away from the sun so that it's hot enough so that we're not in an ice age always, or we're not too hot for survival. Be grateful about, there's so many things you can be grateful about. It's just having to shift the mindset.
And it's a momentum inertia thing where the more you do it, the more capable you are of seeing that positive and being compassionate for people in the way that they've been raised and what they've had to deal with throughout their lives. Lots of people are wired to see the negative more than others. And you're talking about humans generally with that fear response. We're all living in a world that's actively trying to promote the fear response and put us in fight or flight mode all the time, which is why the practice that you're talking about is even more important, and actually taking some of that power back, and switching the news off sometimes, or logging off from your feed, turning the phone off, and then actually, thinking about what you're grateful for, or taking a minute to just have some space and just do nothing and start out doing that, and then become more and more capable of noticing the sun on your skin, or the touch of grass, or seeing a beautiful sunset or whatever it is, and actually feeling it rather than just being distracted all the time and then wondering where the time went. And I think we can all understand why so many people feel like their life passes them by and they can't really remember, and it's all just a blur because, like you said, there's so many inputs going into our brains that are exactly the same kind of brain that they were tens of thousands of years ago, where we only had to forage and find some shelter and hang out, and we've still got that same animal brain, but we've got all these inputs constantly bombarding us. But I think part of the power of your message is that you can actually take the control back and not feed into that for at least 1% of a day, and see how that can transform your life. And that's something that we can all do. And through that, I think building the understanding around that we're sort of the captains of our own destiny to an extent, in that we control the narrative. And a lot of the time, obviously, external things happen and there's shit, and there's no changing that. And I'm not trying to say that it's only bad because you think it's bad, but we can certainly make things much worse. And from so many people that I've spoken to in my own experience, you torment yourself worse than anything, and thoughts racing around in your head, and the constant distraction, and the constant sort of self harassment. A lot of the time, you can choose to not do that and actually build the skill of being nice to yourself and building yourself up and having that space, because life's hard enough without being your own worst enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, like I said, you're the only one who's ever in your mind. Why not try and make it a good place? And as well, I understand, you go on the news and you see what's happening around the world. There's another thing to be grateful for. If you're in Australia, Australia's one in about 333 of the population of the world. If you're in Australia right now, imagine you've got a dice with 1 to 333. You've rolled it and you've landed on number 1. That's how lucky we are to be here in Australia. So if you're listening in Australia right now, there's another thing to be grateful for. But as well, another thing that I always play with in my mind is I look forward and see, the things going on with like global climate change, with plastic pollution, with, the algal bloom down in South Australia, with all of these challenges. I get stuck into conspiracies quite a bit and like, one world order and all this stuff coming in the future. But then I also like try and wind it back to the present moment. I'm like, if any of this stuff does come true that looks like it could be really scary in the future, imagine if we get to that point and we have to live in this really shit existence. And right now, while it's pretty good, we're living in like sadness, and we lived all these years where we could have been, happy and enjoying having the best life where we can while we're present, while it's good right now. Imagine if you get there and you're like, damn it, I spent 10 years just being depressed and devoted about what's coming in the future. And then it came. And I could have just been having a good time while it was really good. So I try my best. And that sort of comes back to just like every day being as present I can with, the conversations I have, with the work that I'm doing. And then what comes is going to come. Try your best to, steer the ship in the best direction you can. But a lot of things are out of our control. So it's like, how can I, change my world? And there's a lot of things that we can do to change our world. We don't have to change the whole world, but we can change our world by improving our habits, improving the habits of those around us, trying to bring them on the journey to, live these days of our life where things are pretty bloody good in Australia right now. As much as there is a lot of challenges, things are, there's some good opportunities and some great things going on in the country to, live a pretty good life right now. So yeah, I don't know really where I was going with that, but hopefully your listeners, if they are in that mindset, might, one or two of them might just like click and go, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
It is only me up in my head. Let's try and make it a bit better.
And the stats and facts and figures matter, like what you weave into your workshops. Actually educating people that the world we live in today and the lives that the majority of people have are better than they've ever been in human history. And because we're all on our phones and in our algorithms all the time, and like you mentioned, that fear mindset, that fight or flight, everything's geared towards that to make you react. And that makes us believe in this lie that things used to be better and it's only getting worse. And actually, by just about every metric, things are better than they've ever been, and humans are better off. And yeah, there's a lot of problems and things to be concerned about, but there's also so much incredible stuff to focus on instead. And even that, all that aside, a lot of people, if you turn your phone off or you turn the TV off and your mind's racing with doom and gloom and everything that's wrong, if you can just take a breath and be in the moment, you realize like in that moment, in this moment right now, everything's actually okay. And this moment is all we ever really have. And a lot of the time catastrophizing about the future, which is anxiety, is something that you're doing to yourself, because most often it's never actually going to come to pass. So don't go through it unnecessarily. And then, yeah, even if it does come to pass, don't put yourself through it twice.
And I'd never want to discount from, people with diagnosed anxiety, depression, these mental illnesses that are so common. And I don't want to take away from those people and be like, hey, just change your mind. Like, I know it is not that easy, but all the data and science shows if you practice mindfulness, gratitude, kindness to others, kindness to yourself, slowly these things will improve. Exercising, getting in nature. Like, my whole thing is like, do all of this stuff before you try and, go to the pharmaceutical route, which is so important for some people and has, profoundly helped a lot of people that I've spoken to, but it's also had the inverse effect on a lot of people. So I think from my personal philosophy, doing these healthy habits that don't cost anything, that are natural, a great first step to try and, build that foundation of good health. And if you are still really struggling, absolutely, therapy isn't also another great thing, being able to talk to people about what's going on. So many alternative therapies as well are really powerful for people. So I just say, if you are struggling, keep looking for something. Not everything's going to work for everybody, but something's going to work for everybody. So yeah, if you are really in the pits right now, you are in that crisis part of your life, hold on, there is hope on the other side. And yeah, I know how many, especially men, and I know a lot of your audience is men. So it's great to, have two young men, me and you, have a conversation right now to hopefully offer some, inspiration, some habits, and a bit of motivation for people to start taking those actions for their mental health.
Very well said. Where can people find your new book?
If you go on thegoodhumanfactory.com on the merch page or the shop page, my book's there. Anyone who buys on my website, I'll sign the copy, which is really cool. Or if you're an Amazon purchaser or a Booktopia purchaser, you can also find them. I'll send you the links and you can probably chuck them in the show notes. So yeah, you grab the book there. If you want to connect with me and learn anything more or have any questions about today's episode, just send me a DM at Cooper Chapman on Instagram. I absolutely love getting to chat to people who hear my story on podcasts who are impacted by it. So, if you learn something that's, you're going to give it a try, send me a DM. I really love to know how people react to the work that I get to share. And yeah, if you're a business or a sporting club or a high school and you want me to come and deliver one of my workshops, one of my keynotes from the, 30-minute, 60-minute, 90-minute, half day, you can find all of that information on thegoodhumanfactory.com as well under the workshop page. So yeah, thank you so much for all the work you do, mate. I know these conversations you have having such a big impact on so many. I know it's not easy to grow a podcast. I've been trying to get my YouTube over 1,000 subscribers for ages, and you've got, 25,000 subscribers over there. I'm sure you've got millions of listens on the podcast, and the impact that you're having with these conversations is really, really important. So I just want to say thanks for the work that you're doing in this space. I think, in this world, it should be all about collaboration, not competition. And in the mental health space, especially in the charity space, I see a lot of competition. So yeah, it's great to have the opportunity to share what I do on your podcast and connect with your audience. So thank you for, the opportunity.
Thanks, Chip. Well said, man. That means a lot. And I agree with that as well. It's kind of the idea of competing in mental health is like the antithesis of what it's supposed to be all about. It's not really about being the best. It's about spreading the message. And we're all part of a wave that it's very encouraging to see continues to grow and build momentum. And I think in the time that you and I have been in the space, there's been a lot of progress made, and we're starting to live in a bit of a different world that I hope continues to evolve in the right direction. And yeah, we can keep an eye out for that book cover that you've got in the background there. You mentioned that you walked past it in the airport the other day. That must have been pretty cool, but it's in bookstores like Dinnix and stuff as well, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much in all good bookstores in the country. It's in, I think every Dimmicks in Australia has it. Collins, I think, is another bookstore. To be honest, I don't really ever go to bookstores. I've only ever really bought all my books online. So it was really cool. I had my book launch in Sydney at Dimmicks, George Street, like three-level oldest bookstore in Australia, biggest bookstore in Australia on Wednesday night, which was really cool. And then I've got another book launch tonight. But yeah, if you go through the airport, look for the black cover with big yellow, the 1% Good Club on it. If you buy a copy, send me a photo, tag me on Instagram. It's really, really cool to see people seeing it in airports. I think I've been tagged already in like Newcastle Airport, Brisbane Airport, Gold Coast, Sydney, Melbourne. So pretty much all the airports will have it. So go have a look if you're flying. And yeah, go into any of your bookstores. QBD, I think, has it in most of the bookstores. So yeah, very lucky. It's been picked up by pretty much everyone. Big W is going to have it in their bookstore. Their store as well. So yeah, the uptake pre-launch from all the stores has been really exciting. So now it's just on, people like you guys listening right now to go grab a copy to see what you think. And then if you do enjoy it, pass it on to somebody, because the 1% Good Club is about growing to more and more people. And, hopefully in the coming years, it becomes a bestseller and we have, hundreds of thousands of people giving 1% of their day to their mental health, because I think it has the power to, profoundly change this planet.
You've started something special there, man. Well done.
Thanks so much for having me. Hopefully, this is kicking it off with these conversations to spread the word.
That's it for this episode. If you like what we're all about, support us by following Young Blood Men's Mental Health on Instagram and Young Blood Mental Health on TikTok. Every podcast episode is recorded in professional quality video, and they're all up on our Young Blood Men's Mental Health YouTube channel. So please show some love and subscribe. You can find everything there is to know about the podcast at youngbloodmensmentalhealth.com. And most importantly, please share these stories with anyone in your life who needs to know they're not alone. We're all in this together. Catch you next time.